أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا قوا أنفسكم وأهليكم نارا أنفسكم وأهليكم نارا وقودها الناس والحجارة عليها ملائكة غلاظ شداد لا يعصون الله ما أمرهم ويفعلون ما يؤمرون. يا أيها الذين كفروا لا تعتذروا اليوم إنما تجزون ما كنتم تعملون. يا أيها الذين آمنوا توبوا إلى الله توبة نصوحا عسى ربكم أن يكفر عنكم سيئاتكم ويدخلكم جنات تجري من تحتها الأنهار يوم لا يخزي الله النبي والذين آمنوا معه نورهم يسعى بين أيديهم وبأيمانهم يقولون ربنا أتمم لنا نورنا واغفر لنا إنك على كل شيء قدير. صدق الله العظيم. بسم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. It's a great pleasure and a great honor for us to have Imam Magid with us today. Of course, he doesn't need an introduction, but for those, since he's crossed the border from Virginia into Maryland, so I'll give you a brief intro for those who aren't familiar with him. As you know, he's the executive director and the Imam of the Adams Center in Sterling, Virginia. He's the chairman of the International Interfaith Peace Corps and the former president of ISNA, the Islamic Society of North America. He's co-authored 3 books, Before You Tie the Knot, A Guide for Couples. I think we all need to read that a few times. Reflections on the Quran and Change from Within. He's well known for his family counseling expertise. In fact, all of the imams, not only in this DMV area, but throughout the country, rely on his advice and tips in terms of how to bring the Muslim families together. And he's active with the Peaceful Families Project as well, which is an important organization that deals with domestic violence. Imam Magid lives in Virginia with his wife and 5 young daughters. And so, of course, he's speaking from a lot of personal experience as well. We know the dua of the Prophet ﷺ about having daughters. So may Allah make you from among them. We specifically requested him to be our very first speaker for our monthly lecture and dinner series. Inshallah, we'll be doing this on a monthly basis. And Imam Magid very kindly and graciously agreed to do so. And in the intervening time, he was invited for a conference in Berlin, Germany. And despite that, he decided to be with us here today. So we're very, very grateful for Imam Magid giving us that priority and making the time to be here, shifting his schedule. So I'd like to ask everyone to please join me in welcoming Imam Magid.
Take my mask off. بسم الله والحمد لله الصلاة والسلام على رسول الله رحمة المهداة والنعمة المسان وعلاه نعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهد الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا أما بعد. Giving great pleasure to be with you this evening. Talk about a very important topic that really concern all of us and concern actually the community at large, not only the Muslims. How to raise teenagers. Is that the topic? As the the verses being recited in the Quran beautifully. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala word ya Sheikh, this beautiful recitations. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala command all of us to take care of our family. Especially in the spiritual sense, in the physical sense. And there's a hadith of Rasulullah Rasulullah said, كَفَى بِالْمَرْءِ إِثْمًا يُضَيِّعْ مَنْ يَعُولُ. Is a sufficient sin for a person, enough of violation of committing a sin that a person will neglect or fulfill the obligation of those whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made them in charge of. Their family, their children. In order for me to speak about this from the practical level, I would like to just make an introduction to talk from the Quranic framework. When I talk about family, you look to the Quran and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in many verses talks and surahs talks about family. Matter of fact, I would like to have my talk to be very interactive instead of lecturing. Which surah in the Quran you consider the family surah? When you think about that surah, it's called the family surah. That talk about family. Which surah do you think? Surah Luqman? Who said that? Luqman, good. It's one of them. I'm going to come to that. But which surah? It's called family surah. It's all the dynamic of families in it. Surah An-Nisa, close. Surah Yusuf. Who said that? Surah Yusuf. Surah Yusuf is a family surah. The surah talk about family is Surah Yusuf. Because it talks about all the dynamic. There's a husband and wife issues in it. siblings, rivalry in it, and the grieving fathers, forgiveness, all kind of things in Surah Yusuf. For when you talk about Quran, talking the Quran, it starts with the Nuh alayhi salam and his son. And a person reading the Quran may think that Nuh alayhi salam and his son have dysfunctional family. Get my point? Because Nuh alayhi salam's son was rebellious, went against his father. Am I correct? Are you with me? I want you to engage with me because I don't like to lecture people. I want to engage people. But Nuh alayhi salam, he couldn't save his own son. Actually, he was grieving because when he saw his son drowning, what did he say to Allah? Inabni min ahli. He said, oh Allah, my son is part of my family. I don't like, he died just. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, to comfort him, to say, he chose not to be part of your family. But the Nuh alayhi salam and son relationship. But then you go to a positive relationship between father and son, which is Ismail and the father. Ismail alayhi salam and Ibrahim alayhi salam. But Ibrahim alayhi salam himself doesn't have good relationship with his father. Or some people say it was his uncle. Some people, scholars says, that was an uncle. And an uncle considered like a father. But Ibrahim alayhi salam and Ismail alayhi salam, positive relationship. And then you go to the relationship of Musa alayhi salam and his mother. And not only that, the mother and the daughter. The relationship between the mother and the daughter. It's a very amazing story. And then you have the story of Yusuf alayhi salam and his father. And then they have the story of Luqman and his son. And then you have Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam examples with his own family from the Sunnah, from the Seerah. Because this topic is a very long topic, it requires series of lectures. If I just take one examples of this, it's going to take a long time to unpack and to dwell on those verses and the lesson to be learned. My hope by the end of my talk to give practical tips rather than abstract. But I just want you to think about one model very quickly. The model of Ibrahim alayhi salam and Ismail. How many of you have teenagers, children? I still have 3 of them. 2 of them that are now in their 20s. I have 3 daughters, teenagers. This is a very silly question I'm going to ask you. How many of you were teenagers one time? Because sometimes when you think about teenagers, you don't talk about your own teenagers' time. What kind of person were you when you were a teenager? That's a question. If for some time we'll just skip that and we're talking about teenage children as if I never one time was a teenager. Just reflect back in your history on history. What kind of teenager were you? So they have reasonable expectations of our children. But let me just give you the glimpse of this very quickly. How many of you here are immigrants or converted to Islam? Immigrants or converted to Islam? Both. Raise your hand. Immigrants? How many of you are immigrants? Raise your hand. Or a convert to Islam? Both. I take it the rest, they're not non-immigrant, no convert to Islam. Only 3 people raise their hand. Migrant to the United States, people who migrated to the United States as immigrants. And people convert to Islam as a first generation. The reason I'm saying this, because this story, a very important story of Ibrahim alayhi salam, because it addressed two aspects of it: an immigrant and the first Muslim, Ibrahim alayhi salam. An immigrant, because Ibrahim alayhi salam was a global citizen. He left Iraq in Egypt, then went to Mecca, then in Palestine. What he did not, he grew up in Iraq and was not an Arab, by the way. Ibrahim alayhi salam was not an Arab. His son Ismail, the father was called Al-Arab al-Musta'riba. Al-Arab, the Arabized Arab. Because originally he was not an Arab. Hajar alayhi salam, his wife that moved to Mecca, she was not an Arab, she was an Egyptian. At that time, Egypt was not an Arab. Am I correct, Sheikh? Therefore, you have a father and a mother, they are intercultural marriage. Both of them come from different culture. They end up in the third place, which is Mecca, with another culture, with a child. A child grew up to be a teenager where? Where did he grow up, Ismail alayhi salam? Grew up in Mecca. His parents come from different culture. His father was the first Muslim. For those who said that was not his father or his uncle, that we know that he went against his people, Ibrahim alayhi salam. And you have now the parents raising just child in a different environment, different culture, but both culture. Am I correct? For the adjustment for the child and adjustment for the parents, especially the mother, was not easy. Am I correct? Now, Ismail alayhi salam is considered a second generation. Do you hear what I'm saying? He's a second generation. Being a second generation, have to adjust to the culture, and he mastered the culture, spoke Arabic better than the Arabs, understood the environment better than Ibrahim alayhi salam. He did not understand the Arab. Ismail did. That's why Allah did not make Ibrahim alayhi salam the messenger or the prophet for the Arabs. He made Ismail. You know what I'm saying? And then the son of Ismail alayhi salam, who is the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Sidna Rasul. Now, therefore, Ismail alayhi salam, in order for him to be part of the society, the communities, has to be groomed and raised in Arab culture, married from the Arabs, in order to indigenize Islam in Arabia, become indigenous to them. You know what I'm saying? And when Ibrahim alayhi salam went to build the most important project humanity have known, which is the Kaaba, he included the second generation. You want Ibrahim alayhi salam to take the sense of ownership of the project. And Allah mentioned that in the Quran. وَإِذْ يَرْفَعُ إِبْرَاهِيمُ الْقَوَاعِدَ مِنَ الْبَيْتِ وَإِسْمَاعِيلُ ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم ربنا واجعلنا مسلمين لك ومن ذريتنا أمة مسلمة لك وارنا مناسكنا وتوب علينا إنك التواب الرحيم. For Ismail alayhi salam participated in building the Kaaba. That's the sense of ownership. Ismail alayhi salam have established among the Arabs leadership in the way that the Arabs come to him for resolving problems. They accepted his leadership because it was made for that. But what happened when he was a teenager? Ismail alayhi salam was read by his mother most of the time because Ibrahim alayhi salam was not there. Am I correct? What Ismail said to his father, Ya bati if'al ma tu'mar, was willing even to sacrifice himself. He was prepared for leadership. Ismail alayhi salam. Now, Ibrahim alayhi salam thought about 4 generations. What's going to happen to 4 generations? Not only 1 generation. Allah says in the Quran, ومن يرغب عن ملة إبراهيم إلا من سفه نفسه وقال اصطفيناه في الدنيا وإنه في الآخرة من الصالحين إذ قال له ربه أسلم قال أسلمت رب العالمين ووصى بها إبراهيم بنيه ويعقوب يا بني إن الله اصطفى لكم الدين فلا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون أم كنتم شهداء إذ حضر يعقوب الموت إذ قال لبنيه ما تعبدون من بعدي قالوا نعبد إلهك وإله آبائك إبراهيم وإسماعيل وإسحاق إله واحد ونحن له مسلمون. Am I correct? Ibrahim alayhi salam, Allah said to him, in order for you to raise good children, you have to show the examples. You cannot tell your children, be good Muslims, and you're not. You cannot tell your children not to smoke, you smoke. You cannot tell your children, don't look at the bad things on TV, you look at it. You cannot tell children not to lie, and you lie. You know the joke? The parents, a father said to his son, go and tell somebody who knocked on the door, tell them I'm sleeping. Before the child goes and said, my dad says he's sleeping. Because he wants to be a child is honest. A model comes from the parents. قال ربه أسلم قال أسلمت رب العالمين. Then Ibrahim alayhi salam told his children, and the children told his children, and then Yaqub told his grandchildren 4 generations down the line. The issue of raising teenagers in America is whether Islam is going to continue in America or not. The way we raise them will determine whether Islam is going to pass to our children and grandchildren or not, or going to be watered down. That's the challenge. Now, let me give you practical things because I think Maghrib is approaching. There are certain things I advise parents, from my own experience of parents who still raising teenagers, and all of us, we know what that look like. First things I want to say to people, setting boundaries. Setting boundaries. And setting boundaries for children, it means the following. Be present and clear. Be present and clear. What do you mean by that? If we are not talking to our children face to face, we're not spending time with them at dinner table, if we are not taking them for hiking, if we are not spending time with them, they will not connect with us, period. Number 2, we have to differentiate between appropriate virtues and controlling and be manipulative. What difference between controlling and establishing values? There's some people says, I just said you sit there. Why? You ask me why? Just sit there. Okay. You're not going to do this. And there's no engagement. If you look at the story of Luqman, when Luqman told his children to do things, he's always told him why. Go read it. Read the source. قال يا بني لا تشرك بالله. Full stop. Why? إن الشرك لظلم عظيم. He said that because shirk is a great sin and so forth. Then he told him that how to walk, how to talk. But first he started with Iman, faith. There's many people concentrate on the behavior, social behavior, but they forget the faith, establishment of faith. But Luqman alayhi salam starts with the faith first. Talk about establishing prayer, differentiate between right and wrong. Then later talk about walk and talk and so forth. There's a religious police in Muslim communities. You heard of them? You heard of religious police? You know, you never heard of them? The religious police is a person standing at the door of the masjid, checking every teenager just comes to the masjid and making judgment on them. You're close to this, you are this, you are that. Turn them off from the masjid. Religious police. Back off a little bit. The things, be firm but flexible. Be firm to say, those are the things I will accept or not accept. But there's certain issue, I have to be flexible on them. We call them thawabit mutaghayyira. There's fixed and variables. In the things that are fixed, be firm on them, then be wishy-washy. Things are require flexibility, be flexible, not rigid. A person also have to guide, to inspire and guide, rather than putting down and blaming. when you put down children, when you affect their self-esteem, when you scream at them, say you're good for nothing, and so that impacts their self-esteem. It happened that I studied psychology. And it's very difficult for people to see, heard everyday negative things. Also, whatever you ask them as boundaries, they look at you to see what you really set your boundary for yourself. You know. Now, raising teenagers is not easy. I'm gonna just overemphasize that. You know, I was talking to my wife, and I said to her that I'm going to give a lecture today about raising teenagers. Said, if you need any help, call me. Yeah, I might. One of the things in raising children, if you don't understand the reality of children, which is public school, cyberspace, understanding what they go through in terms of being in the masjid, you know, dealing with their peers in the masjid or the adult in the masjid. There's certain issue that people ask me about, and I'm going to list them. Number one, peer pressure. Peer pressure. Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave the most powerful advice to a teenage, not a teenager, 10 years old. By the way, children, I don't any child here to get unhappy with what I'm going to say. The most beautiful time until the age of 11, and after 12, they start to become moody a little bit. All of us went through that. You know, those adults who are sitting here, all of us teenagers, and each one of you were moody one day. I'm sorry to say that to you. I said that to myself. Okay, all of you. Okay. Then after 11, 12 years old, they start having attitude a little bit, push the boundary a little bit. Rasul catch the children early enough. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu was 10 years old. He was riding behind the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam gave him the advice. I find that hadith to be the hadith about confidence, identity, self-esteem for children. First, he said to him, Ya ghulam, inni u'allimuka kalimat. He said, oh, young man, I'm going to share with you few words, not a long lecture. Prepare him psychologically, emotionally to listen. Because he knows that after 20 minutes, we're going to sign off. Children. He said to him, it will not going to be a long lecture. Amazing things. Today, people in education, and people study psychology, this is so powerful. He prepared him. He said, listen, they'll be very short. I want you to be tentative. Then he said to him, he said, be mindful of Allah and Allah will protect you. Why he said that to him? Children, teenagers feel always what? Vulnerable. Vulnerability. Want protection. By the way, if you tell your teenagers, I want you to come home by 10 o'clock, even if they sometimes don't listen, it positive things in their mind. My parents want to protect me. Trust me. When you set boundaries like that, they know is in the indirect interest. It will protect them. And therefore, if you become a laissez-faire, the child will think that you have no interest in their protections. Later, will blame you and said, you never protected me. You let me want the wrong people. You have not done this and that when they become an adult. Therefore, he said, احفظ الله يحفظك. احفظ الله تجده تجاهك. Be mindful of Allah. Allah will be there for you in the difficult time. This is confidence. إذا استعنت فاستعن بالله. He said, if you seek help, seek it from Allah. You know why? Because gangs, wrong group, provide always a sense of what? Protection. I have your back, you have my back. And they end up seeking protection from the wrong people. He said, it means the person whom you seek help from has to be connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you seek help from. Don't seek help from wrong people. When you ask Allah. And then the punchline. He said, وَعْلَمْ أَنَّ الْأُمَّةِ. You must know if all humanity gather to want to harm you, it will never happen to you unless Allah will it for you. And if all of them gather to benefit you with something, they will not be able to benefit you unless that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say yes to it. This is very important things about confidence. 10 years old. How many people sit down the 10 years old children and say to them, listen, you're strong. I trust you. You're good. Rely on Allah. And so need to build confidence. Because peer pressures about sometimes low self-esteem. Now the peer pressure problem become really complicated with something called Instagram. You heard of it? The study shows one of the reasons of depression among teenagers, Instagram. You know that or no? Who knows that? Raise your hand. Therefore, tell your children about Instagram. Facebook, Instagram, social media, it is the cause of depressions. Do not let your children go to bed with their phone. The smartphone become a dumb phone. Do not let them allow them to go to bed with the smartphone in their hand. Teach them that's not good for them. Seriously. Because they have to respond to every text. They have to respond to every Instagram. They have to read Facebook and so forth until 2 o'clock in the morning. Socialization never ends. And therefore, they don't have enough sleep. And one of the living healthy life is to have enough sleep for teenagers. Eating right, exercise, good sleep. But when they do that, the smartphone create tension. The smartphone also brings sometimes, when you go to bed with it, bring anxiety, pressure, perfectionism, want to be perfect, want to be, and also lead to something called comparison. I'm going to come to that in a minute. But peer pressure that we need, resolve it by the following. Choose a social environment by which your children would choose the right friends. From young age, before teenagers, whom you become friends with, and they have children the same age of your children, they become friends of. Get them involved in Muslim Youth of North America, MENA, or the youth camp in your neighborhood and so forth. Let them get to know the parents of their friends. That doesn't mean that they should not be engaging with the larger society with a non-Muslim. Do scouting. Boy Scout and Girl Scouts programs make you exposed to other teenagers, but a very structured program. That about peer pressure. Yeah, Sheikh, I think it's supposed to stop here. Question and answer. Because I think I realize that I have too much material. I will not be able to cover this because I just touch on, I have 10 points. I only mentioned 1 point. Now, that's bad planning. You'd like to maybe ask if they ask questions, yeah? As you like. Do you like to engage? Okay.
We need 2, 3 more.
Okay.
One won't do it.
We'll start the Q&A 6:55 is the adhan, and after Maghrib we can do the prayer.
Okay, the second thing, sorry, let me do one more thing about peer pressure. You have to have positive peer influence. When I was a teenager, my father, rahimahullah, knew that there's certain guys in the neighborhood are good people. I just get involved with them, and they're the one who taking me to the Quran halaq before I become teens, by the way. I gave my first khutbah when I was 13 years old. First khutbah was 13 years. But because somebody encouraged me, the adult in the masjid encouraged me, people come and read hadith after Asr for us. I opened Riyadh al-Salihin, 11 years old, read them the hadith. Encouragement and giving people chance and uplifting people. It's very important. Trust me. One word from someone in this masjid to a teenager might change their entire life. Trust me. You know how Imam Malik became a scholar? His mother said to him, "You look like a scholar." And she went and dressed him like a scholar and gave him a mirror and said, "Look at you." He said, "Wow, I do like a scholar." You know how Imam Abu Hanifa became a scholar? When he's teenagers, he was working in the market, and a man met him and said to one of the descendants of Zubayr ibn Awam, he said to him, "You're very smart in business, but I think your mentality, your mind is a mind of fiqh. If you study fiqh, you're going to benefit the Muslims. You want to study fiqh." Another just person told him that. Imam Shafi'i, how Imam Shafi'i became a scholar? He was memorized 10,000 verses for Arabic poetry from a tribe called Hudayl and become very good and sit and talk about Arabic language and so forth. One of the scholars said to him, "Beautiful language. If you add fiqh to it, you become amazing." He said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "Where should I go?" He said, "Go to Imam Malik." He went to Imam Malik. People change people's life because of that. Encouragement, uplifting, inspiring people. Give them a chance. That's for boys and girls, by the way. Since I have girls, don't think I'm talking about boys. Okay? Remember that Rasulullah gave the mission of sending food to the Ghar Hira to Asma, and she was teenagers. Mother of Musa alayhi salam asked the daughter to go to the house of Pharaoh to follow her brother. Don't exclude girls from development. Don't exclude girls from empowerment, ever in your community or in your household. Don't be man-centered, male-centered. Now, the other thing is that expectations. One of the biggest problems is what you expect of your children. All relationships are based on expectations, including the relationship with Allah. Does Allah expect something of us? Yes or no? Are you expecting anything of Allah? Yes. Relationship based on expectations. Whether marriage relationship, business relationship, parent-children relationship based on expectation. If you make the three things, you need to avoid an expectation, raising children. One, hidden expectation. You expect a child to do something, you never communicate to them. You know better than that. I don't have to tell you that. No. Even your wife, your husband, you cannot read people's mind. They said, no hidden expectation. Had to be communicated, verbalized, told. The second expectation you need to avoid is expectation that's not reasonable. If you ask somebody to do something that you beyond their means, there's parents want the child must become a doctor, and the child doesn't want to become a doctor, and they force them to become a doctor, and they force them to depression. Am I correct? Not only that, after they become a doctor, they want you to marry the doctor because they believe الطبيبون للطبيبات. doctor for doctors. Allah said, "الطيبون الطيبات." You know, that kind of things, pressure. Reasonable expectation. Number 3, avoid external expectations. Please, my brothers and sisters, do not compare the children to other children and tell them you're comparing them to their cousins, comparing to this. Why are you not good in math like your cousin? Why are you not good in English like your, don't do that. This is devastating. Impact their self-esteem and demoralize them. Ask them, what can I do to help you with your math? What can I do to help you with your English? What can we do to help you with your schooling? That's how you do to talk to them. I know you have potential. How can I have you to realize your potential? Not like, you remember that when you visit your cousin and his father said he has an A's and so forth. I don't know what's wrong with my children. I was so embarrassed. He was so ashamed of you. No. Don't do that. Expectation has to be reasonable and encouragement, no comparison. Don't compare them to others. That's enough points? Would you like more? 5 more minutes. Okay. One of the things that children seem to wishy-washy about it, you should not back down when disagreement involves a difference of opinion about beliefs and values that you consider essential. If you do that, I'm talking about expectation now. You said, I'm expecting you not to hit your brother or sister. Period. That expectations is essential. You do not back off from that expectations. I'm expecting you not to be with this particular group of people whom I think they're bad news. That's essential. Those things, if you become wishy-washy about them, it's a problem. And in that point, parents have to be in the same page. Do not use your children as a means and ways to satisfy your own deficiency in your marriage relationship. What do I mean by that? Now the husband and wife have tension, and then the father told a child to do something, or mother told the child, and the father said, you don't have to do that. It's okay. Okay, don't tell her I told you that. It's okay. It's okay. Now, because you want to have them to be his side, don't compete like that with children. That destroys children. Children has to be away from conflict. Cannot be used in the middle. It's not healthy. Not good for them, not good for you. Because if, and some people said that we play in our home good cop, bad cop. Bad idea. Worst idea. Both of you be on the same page. Being loving, compassionate, caring parents. When you being affirmed in your things with compassion. It's compassion. But it cannot be mama versus baba or dad versus mother. You know what I mean? That cannot be it. I think it's time for the prayer Maghrib. I want to stop here. And if you have questions, I can send you some of my notes. You know, there's so many things to be said. Maybe somebody will continue this talk. Any questions? It's Maghrib time, ya Sheikh. It's Maghrib time. Oh, because I saw it's 5 minutes. 5 minutes before we call us. Ah, alhamdulillah. Okay.
Take one question. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I think I speak for everyone that this has been very enlightening. I don't have teenagers, but I'm a little bit more scared. I hope I open the Q&A. You'll give me some good news, inshallah. Also, I wanted to inform you that Imam Magid, his wife, is participating as one of the organizers of a study for high school students, those who have graduated from the ages of 12 to 21, who are former public school students. So if your children or you yourself fall in that category, the flyers are available. They can sign up for the study, and it will be very beneficial for us to have a study about the Muslim public school experience. So please be aware of that. Also, we wanted to let you know that for the Mawlid event for the month of Rabi' al-Awwal, we have a program about the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ on the 17th. And we're looking for everyone to sign up to please bring a dish for the program. That's at 11 a.m. We have a beautiful program, inshallah, involving, I think, over 100 of the kids, coordinating them, anashid and lectures. We have Dr. Tariq, as you know, is coming back from Egypt, especially to be with us 1 week before that. So I'd like to invite everyone to please join us on the 17th. The sign-up sheets are in the library, so you can write down what dish you're able to bring, inshallah. If you don't mind, because we just taking one question before Salah, I'll ask you my question. And then after this, I won't ask anymore, inshallah. How do you discipline teenagers, especially those who have signs of behavioral issues? What's the problem?
Actually, this was my 10 points about consequences. There's no guidelines. There's no expectation with no consequences. You know that? No expectation without consequences. If I expect the person to do 1, 2, 3, and then what if they don't do it? What is the consequence? First of all, I am against corporal punishment, physical punishment. We're going to be very open with that. I'm against that. Because the Rasul never hit a man or a woman or a child in his life. And I take my model from Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Sidna Rasul. He did have children, he did have grandchildren, but never hit any one of them. Do you know that or no? Agreed? Never hit any one of them, not hit a man or a woman in his life. But he's my model in raising children. Alhamdulillah, I didn't do it for my children. Now, but you have to be firm with consequences. You can, we have something in raising children. We call it instead of punishing, we call it the accountability. Hold them accountable. Before you say to them, listen, if you don't do this, I'm expecting the 1, 2, 3 from you. If you don't do it, what do you think the accountability should be? First ask them, what do you want to see the consequences? Oh, I don't know. It has to be a consequences. Okay, I'm going to give you 3 options. You are not going to use your computer or cell phone for 2 days. Teenager, tell them that. Oh, okay, therefore, okay, I'm going to be surprised with my phone. Yeah. Okay. Or number 2, you will not be able to go to this program, which is not an essential program that you want to go to if you have done 2, 3, 4, 5 things. Certain things, those are do not deprive them from something basic that they need. You don't tell them no lunch. That's not acceptable. Don't do that kind of thing. Therefore, you have to establish the consequences for actions. Now, but also you need to encourage them to have leadership responsibility. Instead of just receiving, tell them, we want to do this, what your participation will be in it, what your contribution will be in it. And then you tell them what will happen if they don't do their part. That changes attitude because we give them a sense of ownership. But there's more to say about this. the studies been shown in this. We'll stop here, inshallah. We'll pray Maghrib and come back.
So inshallah, I've been told because we have the setup upstairs, we'll be praying Salat al-Maghrib downstairs. If we have any visitors, the wudu area is as you enter. So go ahead and take your wudu. We'll be starting very momentarily, inshallah, downstairs. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر، الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. استقيموا. استقيموا. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين، الرحمن الرحيم، مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم، صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. ضرب الله مثلا للذين كفروا امرأة نوح وامرأة لوط كانتا تحت عبدين من عبادنا صالحين فخانتاهما فلم يغنيا عنهما من الله شيئا وقيل ادخلا النار مع الداخلين. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. وضرب الله مثلا للذين آمنوا امرأة فرعون إذ قالت رب ابن لي عندك بيتا في الجنة ونجني من فرعون وعمله ونجني من القوم الظالمين. ومريم ابنة عمران التي أحصنت فرجها فنفخنا فيه من روحنا وصدقت بكلمات ربها وكتبه وكانت من القانتين. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. We'll allow everyone a couple minutes to complete their sunnah, and we'll reconvene for the Q&A session. And following that, everyone is invited to join us for a catered dinner. So everyone is most welcome. Bismillah.
Should I ask? Huh?
If you want, you can use this, or we'll be.
How do you like?
Whatever you prefer.
This one?
You can put that, because I need to use this for the audience.
Okay. But that come between a man and his dinner. Not good.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So please make your way, find your seats. Please walk all the way down so that way we can accommodate everyone. So this is a very important part of the program, the Q&A session. We've already started to receive written questions, but we want to open it to the floor to see if there are any questions. We have a microphone. We'll go around and you're welcome to ask any questions, but our request is please one question at a time. So with that, let's get going, inshallah. Yes, sister.
That's what I want to tell you up front. The question I don't know the answer for it, I don't shy to say I don't have an answer for it. I never pretend to answer a question that I don't know. But don't take it that I'm not avoiding your question.
So this may have that answer, and that's fine. It's just, how do we address with teenagers and dating and things like homecoming and prom? How do we address that without being tough and harsh and help them break it down, the reasons why, without losing them in the path and making them feel left out?
Okay, that's a very important question, actually. Very important question. There are three things you need to think about. Three things. Do not create expectation just at the time of events. Very emotionally tense. You wait until that homecoming and the prom. You wait until that day, and then you set them in the day you're not going. No. It's a bad idea. You have to prepare the children of what to expect of them and why they are not doing certain things other children are not doing. That's number one. Number two, you have to concentrate in building their relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala way before this happened. So they take a sense of ownership of the decision themselves. They say, I'm not going to go to this. And they know why. Third, alternative. You have to create. Let me do this. You hear me now? Because I'm answering difficult questions. I have to not to be misunderstood. Okay. You have to create alternative. If you say to your children, no to this, no to this, no to this, and so what? What is it? Like you tell me everything is no, what should I do? You have to create an alternative. I think one of the programs that I'm very happy with, alhamdulillah, initiated by some brothers at the Adam Center this year, is high school graduation. People dressed up, came and acknowledged and so forth. Create something exciting for them. But we, in the issue of the haram was no alternative. Haram was no alternative, lead to dilemma. I'll give you an example. Rasulullah was going and was Sahaba, and they saw some people having a particular celebration. Said that Rasulullah went to, how can we need to celebrate this with them? Like we missed this. Mujahideen time. Rasulullah said, Allah replaced this with a better Eid for you. Give them the alternative of Eid celebrations. You know, that you have now guided the children, talk about the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It created an environment where the people feel a sense of belonging, socializing, and so forth, and being sense of connections. The other thing is that I saw in some masajid, all the children of that high school, boys and girls, they do a program for them in the masjid from the same high school, the Muslims. They do a program for them. But it is very important that to think out of the box a little bit on these issues. I hope that will answer your question. Alhamdulillah.
There's a related question that we received, which might have the same answer. How do we react to kids wanting to go to mixed group parties?
It depends what mixed groups are. It depends. Muslim Youth of North America, MENA, is mixed group. Controlled mixing, this is very controversial. I'm going to say something very controversial. Controlled mixing is better than them to be mixed in the way that's not being controlled. You have to teach them how the proper interaction between genders. Otherwise, you're going to send them to university, don't you? You have only Muslim girls university in America? They're going to go to university. You have to train them in the proper interaction between male and female. You know, there's an Arabic poet said, ألقاه في اليم مكتوب سواعده وقال له إياك إياك أن تبتل بالماء. You heard that point before? He said a guy handcuffed somebody and throw them into the water and say, stay dry. How's that going to happen? ألقاه في اليم. Huh? His hands are handcuffed and said, don't get wet. But he put him in the water. You have to tell him how to swim. Huh? But it's very important. And handcuff, untie their hand. That's a very important aspect of this. The proper interactions. Proper interaction. Teach them proper interaction.
Okay. Next question. Yes.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure and honor to be present here. I think I learned
Thank you,
quite a bit. Just a couple of observations and one question. You mentioned about the education of female and male. There is an observation all over the people, I think, that when you educate a male, you educate a person. When you educate a female, you educate a family. There is a multiplier effect. So we have to be very, very important in doing. Secondly, we are called about accountability. That they have to be accountable for certain things. But for that, we need to really be very clear about the responsibility that they have to follow, and then they are accountable. Only after they have fully understood this.
Yes.
And thirdly, I would say that we have to be role model. No question about it.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter what you think or say, it is what we do.
Yeah.
That really helps. So that's it. Thank you.
Actions speak louder than words. Yeah.
Okay. Are there some more questions? I think from the sisters. Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Assalamu alaikum.
So,
So children by nature, they will make mistakes. And
Mhm.
they will have a lapse in judgment.
believe me, I was a child before. I know that. I make some mistakes.
So what is the proper way of sort of rebuilding that relationship and rebuilding that trust?
Do not scold the children in a way that break their self-esteem in public. Don't do that. You break their self-esteem. You have to do it unless there's something dangerous happening, something that needs immediate intervention. But anything, wait until they're away from the adults, because they're going to come to go to the same masjid, they're going to be around same friends. Unless this, what they did, it's concerning another person, they hit another person. But correct them as much as you can, not humiliate them. Correct them, not humiliate them. The other thing is that when people don't understand that child is going to get upset if you've been corrected, and don't to appease the child so quickly for something that they have done wrong. Let them get upset a little bit, no problem. Like some parents couldn't take it. Oh, you did, oh, it's okay. Now the child says, okay, now the way I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna manipulate them. Every time there's something, I'm gonna cry, I'm gonna say, I'm not gonna eat, I'm not. That, then the parents become like worried about, maybe we should not tell them anything. Third things, don't do the responsibility for them. Parents, even some parents want to do their homework for their children. Don't do things for them. Let them learn. Ask them to wash their dishes. Ask them to pick up their clothes from the floor. Children will not raised with no responsibility tend to be not good parents themselves later. But you have to give them responsibility and consequences. Don't belittle them. You know, if you want them to involve in the prayer planning, make one of them in charge of putting the prayer rug. Other person, you know, maybe help with the adhan, other person help with this and that. If we give them some responsibility, some ownership of the activities at home. He said, we're having guests. I want you to be a host with us. We're gonna see how we're gonna treat our guests. We give them the responsibility. Therefore, give them a sense of ownership and don't belittle them in this.
So while we're waiting for other questions, we have another one that was submitted. How, and you touched on this earlier with regard to social media and bedtime. This is more general. How do we deal with kids who don't agree to put their phones down, constantly on their phones?
Yeah, show them what I told you about depressions, because they think that you are controlling. You just want to control them. You have to tell them the incentive, the positive things about it, and why it's not good for them. I remember one time I went to a Muslim camp, and the counselor said to the children, by 10 o'clock, all your phone, how to give it to the counselors, and the counselor will give it to you next day. One of the child started crying, teenagers. Said, I never slept without my phone. You have to know why. Not feeling safe, feel connected to the wall. What is it? You cannot raise children without understanding the emotional vulnerability of children. Why they become so attached to your phone. Maybe the parents are not spending time with them. Maybe they feel neglected at home. I cannot jump to conclusion and say, you know, why the child is not connected, insisting to keep their phone with them. But it's very important that to create kind of what's called screen time. Tell the child, okay, how many hours you want to spend on the screen? Teach them how to control them. Screen time. I think it's very important. But also tell them it make you happier if you sleep at night, have good, you know, night sleep, make you healthier and so forth. Try to convince them. You know, all of us were teenagers one time, we did those in some level, but you have to do your best and to convey those things.
You spoke earlier about Instagram, but I've noticed that, you know, a lot of socialization happens on Instagram. A lot of socializing happens on Instagram. Now there's a new trend on TikTok. And I don't get it. I don't really understand. I'm not cool enough to understand what's going on TikTok. What are your feelings about that? Should parents, some of them have drawn a hard line. They said you can be on other social media, but not TikTok.
Yeah, it depends. Every social media medium, platform, say, has negative things in it. I think responsible interactions happen on social media had be told to children. I'm going to share with you very sad news. There's some children who went to deep depressions, as I said, they have Instagram, because they always see the perfect child in the other screen. And you have to remember, people put their best in their Facebook. They search for the best picture when there's no anything that on their face, and they make themselves look perfect. They put filters, and then they put the, you know, the good time they have and so. And then we create what we call a social reality that is really out there, that is frustrate people. But says, I remember I was talking to a teenager, and he said to me, "I just want to be like this person." I said, "Why?" He said, "You seem very happy. Have you seen their post? They dress very nicely. They have the best home. They have best this, best that." I said, "That's what you see on Facebook. You don't know what that person going through." For that kind of understanding of the facade of social media is very important to convey to the children.
Question from the sisters group. Since this program is live on YouTube, the question
Now
is,
it's live. This program
yeah,
is
it's
live?
this is live. And
I'm
it's on in this
I'm in trouble already.
ICCP sisters group are watching. So they send me a question. A child says that she wants to find his own relationship with Allah and wants to find her own self. How do you guide them? Thank you.
The child who said that is a reaction to something. Trust me. If you have told them from the beginning the relation with Allah, you take them to the masjid, they hear children singing about Islam, they play soccer with other children and so forth. If you build that, you will not raise that, children will not raise that question. Sometimes we come to a point that either the way we represent Islam to them, turn them off, or we come late in the game. I'm gonna be honest with you. Some children, teenagers, told me, "I'm no longer a Muslim." Or they told their parents, "I'm no longer Muslim." And the parents bring them 17 years old, 16 years old to my office, says, "My child said he's not a Muslim. I'm really so depressed and devastated." I said to the parents, "Can you leave the room? Just sit outside a little bit." I said to the guy, "What's the name of your girlfriend?" He said, "How do you know I have a girlfriend?" I said, "Do you have one?" He said, "I do." I said, "What's your big real dispute between you and your parents?" He said, "There's too much stricting, throwing Islam to me, Islam this, Islam this, Islam that." And I told them, "I don't believe in Islam." I said, "Do you believe in Allah?" Yes. "You really don't believe in Rasul?" No, I don't. I said, "Subhanallah, parents come back. You tell your child come back to Islam." You know, is because they throw the baby with the bathwater, and they said, "Okay, I give up Islam because you strict me." You have to meet the children where they are, instead of what you have, pushing them to where you want them to be. Meet them where they are. The aspect of I want to know Allah myself, and so they want to take a sense of ownership for Islam. Empower them to say, "Okay, how can I facilitate that?" If the child said, "I want to have my own relation with Allah," I said, "How can I help you to do so?" Allah sent prophets to guide people to have a relationship with Allah. Teachers have taught people how to get to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What program do you want me to send you to? What kind of video you want to hear? How can I facilitate that? Because you are still a child. You need somebody to facilitate it for you. They tell them, "Okay, I agree with you, but let me facilitate it." Any questions? I hope that answered questions. The sister on the other side said, "Okay."
Yes.
Yeah.
Imam Magid, I met you when I was 12 years old.
I remember that.
That was many decades ago,
Yeah.
before you even had a wife or kids of your own.
I was teaching Muslim youth of North America, Mina.
I have a photo I brought with me, but anyway. But the funny thing, I brought it up because my oldest son is 12. And I, just having seen you grow up in this area and, being a community leader, I'm really interested if you can share with us sort of trends that you notice that like where the youth was, where they're going, things that you've seen, what's changing, what's good, what's bad, where are those changes, quantitative, qualitative, because I think that that would really help us put that in reference in terms of where I was when I was 12 and where my son is now, when he's 12.
Yes. Thanks, Ramna. Now, is the question, a very important question also, is the issue of identity. Listen, the complexity of raising children now is the issue of identity. Who am I? An identity, like an onion, has layers. You have to be able to give children in society, in the world that's changing so much in the issue of identity, whether it's religious identity, whether now they call it orientation, identity, gender orientation, identity, whether it's the issue of culture. The issue of identity is huge. It requires for Muslims to unpack that. I remember 3 years ago, we started this curriculum at Adams for teenagers. And we brought 3 people to tell us what kind of curriculum should have for the youth. They said it has to be around identity. They need to know who they are. The time that you grow up, as in your time, your husband time, and other young professionals, young parents in this gathering, there was no social media at the time. There was no internet per se, heavy like we see today. The social norms are not the same. Vocabularies is not the same. You cannot be a parent in 2021 and be an effective parents if you don't know social trends, you don't know the vocabularies, concept, terminologies, and the issue of fighting for identity. You have from religious nationalism to far left liberal and between. And for people who think that religion is the matter of the past, the death of religion, and some people believe that religion has to be mixed with politics and has to be the driving factor in policy in America, religious nationalism. From people believe that every individual can make their own values. Not only that, people say God's role is for us to come and ask him for things, but he cannot ask us for anything. Modern paganism. God has to go with my desire. If I want this, God has to love it. You hear me saying? This is serious. God has to comply with what I want in order for him to be good God. You hear what I'm saying? That's modern paganism. Creating God in your own image. That's serious. That's heavy stuff. And therefore, our theology has to address this. Our theology. How to address this modern concept of God and of religion to young people today. Why the slogan is, if it feels good, just do it. Get my point? The most difficult things in the world is new terminologies. How do you keep up new terminologies? I will say this because I don't like to continue on dinner. I'll say this, maybe we'll end the questions to answer with it. The first thing Allah taught Adam alayhi salam was what? What did he taught Adam alayhi salam? علم آدم الأسماء. Names. Names are concepts. Names are terminologies. How you name things. How you name marriage relationship. How you define marriage relationship today. What is love? What is accountability? What is the individual responsibility? What is individualism? What is communal responsibility? What is satisfaction? What is happiness? What is dignity? What is honor? Those are things on the table. You know what I'm saying? That's what the seriousness of this matter is. And therefore, any Sunday school does not reshape, address those serious matters, it will be Sunday school exist in last century. You hear what I'm saying? It's everything set at the school or youth program. You have to be able to speak the language of the time. I'll give you one more example from the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, لا تقولوا راعنا وقولوا انظرنا. Why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed a verse in the Quran, said to the Sahaba, don't no longer use this term, because that term was corrupted. But the terms that must be purified, Quran insists on them. You know what I'm saying? The most dangerous sciences are social sciences, not natural sciences. Physics, medicine are neutral. Political science, anthropology, sociology, psychology, that's what the matter is. And whoever controls that discourse can control the new trends of what children are going to be raised look like and what humanity is going to look like in the next decades. I think it's complicated more. Okay, alhamdulillah. Okay.
So with this, inshallah, Imam Magid, please give us wasiya, final word. for us to
Final
take away.
words. But I see brothers raising their hands.
Making me pick. So I think there was one question somebody's been waiting, right?
Thank you very much for the session. My question is kind of related with this thing. How, and I've seen that this thing is happening, but the Muslim community seems to be quiet about it. How do you explain the current movement of the LGBTQ community and how it's affecting our children? Because I see this thing happening in televisions. I see this thing happening in schools. How do you deal and explain the situation to your kids? And someone should talk about it in communities like this.
I'm going to be very open and very frank with you. Is it okay to be frank? In Masajid, if you don't teach sexuality, I'm using this word in the masjid, you don't teach people what it looks like in physical relationship, what is the boundaries, they're going to learn from TV, they're going to learn from the internet. Either you're going to teach that or ask somebody else to teach it. Number one problem in a Muslim masajid. This is a taboo topic. They don't talk about it for children learning from other people. Am I correct? That's the first challenge you have. Hush, 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 don't talk like this. I don't like my children to know anything about this. Really? You telling me your children are not going to know about it? Send them to public school. And make it a survey. Ask them, have you heard of it? The parents have no clue. They bury their hand, their head, and their hand as well, in the sand, and they don't know what's happening. And they're telling me as an imam, we don't like any of this kind of talking about this. Really? Second issue. Islam is clear what permissible, not permissible. You know me. I speak in interfaith, I speak in government, and so forth. I never changed my principle. The people ask me about this. I said Islam is very clear in what is permissible in relationship. Islam says only relationship is permissible with man and woman who are married. Islam does not recognize girlfriend-boyfriend relationship. Does not. Islam does not recognize any relationship other than this husband and wife. Any pre-relationship. There's certain people you cannot marry in Islam. There's a list, even women. You cannot marry. محرمات بالنسب, محرمات بالرضاعة. And for you have a whole package. In Islam, we don't separate this issue. We don't say only this group or that group. There's one criterion for all. And that's what it is. We are consistent on it. Because some people say, we accept this, but they don't accept that. For Muslims, that's what it is. Now, you have to be able to counsel people. You have to be able to meet people where they are in all levels. To give people opportunity. Sitting before the Imam, engaging them in serious dialogue, talking to them. We do not accept physical hurt, discriminations for any members of American society. Do you? You don't. But we say that where we stand for in terms of belief, don't force me to change my belief to satisfy your belief. It's not fair. That's not acceptable. Now, do we have teenagers struggling with this, with identity? Yes, in every masjid. I say this comfortably. And almost in every masjid that somebody is struggling with this. Struggling with relationship outside of marriage. We have to recognize that our community, like other communities, have many challenges, many issues that we need to have to be equipped to deal with them. That's all I can say.
I sort of had a related question to that. I mean, so thanks for addressing that, which is part of my question. The other part is there's this big push now in schools and in job places for sort of being fluid about gender. Like you can be he, she, you can be they. And so how do we explain to our children in a way that's not going to isolate them or alienate them with other members of the community?
Yeah, you can teach your children to navigate new social trends in society without being isolated. Absolutely. I have that conversation with my children. The issue here is this, that some parents, they want to completely withdraw the children from public arena. And when they start opening up to the public, they have disaster because they were not protected enough. In any society, whether even Sudan, I'm from originally from Sudan, there's new trends in behavior now occurring in Sudan, did not occur in my lifetime when I was a child. Indecent material that in the fingertip of somebody, in the internet, it was not exist in my time. Therefore, children being exposed to that all the time. Therefore, غض البصر, lowering your gaze, is different. There's a different aspect of it now. The same thing, but physical relationship, relationship outside of marriage and so forth, drugs, alcoholism, marijuana, and so forth. Those are serious issues that if you don't talk about them, they're going to learn from somebody else. You have to address this.
So my apologies to the questions we couldn't get to. I think it's time for us to proceed to dinner. So for this time, for real, the final word.
Okay. Okay, Jazakumullah khair. Thank you so much. I wish I can stay for the dinner. I'm traveling tomorrow, but I really enjoy talking to all of you. Inshallah, we'll visit next time, and my Allah bring also Tariq safely back from Egypt. But I really, Sheikh, thank you so much. Thank you, the community, for inviting me. And thank Dr. Islam for my community facilitated. Assalamu alaikum.
Barakallahu feekum. May Allah put it in your scale of good deeds. Allahumma ja'al fi mizan hasanatik. Thank you so much. Everyone's invited to proceed to the cafe and take your meal.
We'll be serving food in the, behind the barn. So give us
So if you
5
can-
minutes to serve it out. Give us 5 minutes.
So the food will be served outside of the barn. So you'll have to exit ICCP and walk towards the barn for the dinner.